Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Productivity Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Productivity. Don't forget to head on over to my website, mrproductivity.com. You can sign up for my free email newsletter, get some free training, and find everything you want about me at mrproductivity.com. On the show today, Liam Naden. He is an expert of the brain. And folks, let me tell you something. The brain is kind of important. Without the brain, we really don't have a life. So, Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. It's really great to be here.
Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Where are you calling from? Because you're obviously not in America. What part of the world are you calling from?
Well, actually, at the moment, I'm in beautiful, sunny Denmark in Europe.
Nice. Nice. And he actually is I guess you could say a wandering nomad, which means you're actually in the trailer right now, right?
Yeah, I haven't lived anywhere for about 13 years now, just traveling the world on a boat for 8 years, and now I'm in a motorhome. I think you call them RVs over there. But that's how I live these days. It's great.
Nice. Okay, so where I want to start off the show is I am a fan of Dr. Peter Attia, and he wrote the best-selling book called Outlive. So I listened to the audiobook, and I liked it so much, I bought the hard copy because I wanted to have the physical book in front of me. And my mother died of Alzheimer's, and her mother died of Alzheimer's, so I'm very interested in Alzheimer's. And in the chapter, he talks about mental illness and Alzheimer's. He talks about, and I shared this with you, and you took exception to it, so that's where I want to jump off on this. He said that the brain is like going to do whatever it can to survive, and it lives off of glucose. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know as much about the brain as you do. And if it can't get enough glucose, then it starts getting it from the fat cells, then it starts eating away our organs, and it'll even go to the bone in order to survive. When I took that screenshot of that paragraph for you and sent it to you, you're like, we need to have a conversation about this on the show. So let's jump off there. Because you didn't tell me what your answer was. You didn't tell me where you're going to go. And so I'm going to be hearing this for the first time as the audience is.
Well, I guess you're absolutely right. And the person you're referring to is absolutely right. The brain is critical, and it will do whatever that it needs to do to survive. But I think it comes down to understanding a bit more about what survival actually is, and what the brain actually does to survive, irrespective of whatever, I don't think it's useful. It's not my area of expertise to get into whether you should burn fat or sugar as your primary fuel source. There's this a whole thing now coming out about the carnivore diet where people are living on fat only and getting, it's really interesting. But I think maybe the place to start, because you mentioned at the beginning, slightly tongue-in-cheek perhaps, that the brain is important. But, I think none of us, or virtually none of us, have really stopped to think just what the brain is and how important it is. And maybe I could explain just a little bit to start with how I came to this working with the brain and working to understand what it really is, because the primary question I've always been really concerned with is, how do we really get the results we do in our life? Because we're all here wanting to live the best life possible. I'm sure the people watching and listening to your show, they're here because they want to be more productive. They want to get more out of life. It's not about just survival. It's about thriving. It's about being the best that we can be. I went on that journey for a very long time of studying everything I could about how to be successful. But really, I got to a point one day, and I remember it was quite a few years ago now, but I walked into, I just finished, was putting the finishing touches on my dream home, that I'd been building. And I remember walking into my music room. I'd created, I'd been a musician as growing up at university. I studied music. I always had a dream of having a music room with a pipe organ in it, because I played the pipe organ. So, and I literally created that dream. I walked into my music room this particular day, and I remember looking out through the big windows that we had on the front and seeing the mountains in the background, the sun on the mountains. So our horses were grazing on our land that surrounded this beautiful house. And I thought, and at the time I had 3 businesses. And, I remember walking in and saying to myself, I should be really happy. I should be so grateful. I should be so proud of myself for what I've achieved in my life. A lot of the things I dreamt about, being financially independent, having a beautiful dream home, having my own music room. I should be so thrilled, and I should be able to enjoy this beautiful moment because the weather was spectacular, the view was spectacular. But instead what I felt was absolute stress, frustration, anger. I was almost at breaking point. And I sat there and I said, why aren't I happy? Why can't I enjoy this? What's the purpose of this? And I just had a really bad argument with my wife, which didn't help. And I realized I had all these problems that appeared to me in my life. I had issues with my business and things, but I thought, this is crazy. At what stage of success do I need to get? Because I've become a multimillionaire. What stage of success do I need to get before I can say I'm actually achieve what I really want to feel, which is good, which is happy, which is really excited about my life? I felt the opposite. And, I remember this thinking to myself, I don't know if it was a voice or something, but it was like, I'd rather give up all of this. I'd rather just throw the whole lot away and start again with nothing rather than lose my soul, because it felt like I was losing my soul. And isn't this the problem for so many highly productive people? We're on this path to achieving more and doing more and getting more, but we never manage to achieve this balance. There's always there's problems in some area of our life. Whenever at that point of being really feeling in the flow of life, and which is really what being super productive is all about, is feeling that you're in control, not weighed down with problems and stress. Well, the interesting thing was about losing everything, you have to be a little bit careful about what you think, what you wish for, because it was literally within a couple of months that I did lose everything. It all went, all the businesses,
Wow.
the home, that I wasn't even quite finished. I lost that. I lost my marriage. I lost everything. And I had to move from that wonderful house to moving to the other side of the other end of the country. This was in New Zealand, my home country. And I had to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room of her small apartment. My elderly mother.
How old were you at? You at this point?
I was in my mid-40s. It wasn't like I was in my 20s and it was like, I'd done it overnight. I'd spent my whole life trying to reach this level of success, and it was completely gone. And and when I said I'd be prepared to lose everything, I never really realized what losing everything really meant, because it was the most horrible emotional place. I'd be lying on the sofa thinking, what on earth is going on here? Why has this happened to me? And what on earth do I do about it? And I was really confused to ask myself, why has this happened to me? And what do I do about it? Because I thought, it should never have happened to me. For all of those 40-odd years, I'd been not only working hard on my business and building up my financial and other things, but I'd also been studying success. I was the guy, I had a huge library of self-help books. I'd been to tons of seminars with all the big names. I could rattle off to you. I had my goals lists, everything mapped out, my life mapped out. I could rattle off to you everything about motivation, success. I'd studied meditation, spiritual practices, the law of attraction, all sorts of mind techniques about, changing your beliefs, changing your subconscious mind, all of these different things. And I thought, well, why has this happened to me? Because firstly, it wasn't on any goals list to do this. Completely unexpected, completely it seemed out of my control. And also, all of the theories that I had about success, they seem to have gone out the window, because there I was sitting on the couch thinking, I have no clue what to do now. I don't know how to get myself out of this mess that I'm in. People ringing me up and wanting money that I didn't have, and I just was so confused, so stressed. What happens when you get stressed? You just can't think straight. You don't know what to do. And what I actually did, and this is all coming around to how the brain works and why it's so important, but I actually, without realizing it, what I was doing on a biological level, I did the opposite to what probably anyone else in that situation would do, and what I'd been doing right up until then. And that was, I literally gave up. I stopped trying. I stopped trying to figure out what to do. I stopped asking myself questions. What do I do now? I stopped getting out bits of paper and trying to figure it all out and work out, plans and strategies. I literally said to myself, that's it. I'm too exhausted. I don't have the answer to any of these questions. I give up. And after that, things started to change in my life in a really strange sort of way, because it was like coincidences and strange things started to come to me. You know, I'd meet somebody that I hadn't seen and he provided me with a business opportunity. I'd meet other people. I'd come up with different ideas. And it wasn't too long as I dug myself out of this hole, I found myself with 3 businesses again. Different businesses, but 3 businesses. I found a new romantic relationship, somebody far better than I've ever met before, certainly to, my previous marriages. And I started to do, these things were coming to me. I spent 8 years sailing around on on a new yacht. I spent 18 months living in a new motorhome and traveling around New Zealand. All of these things were happening. And I said to myself, what's going on here? Because this is really different. I'm putting in effort, but there's not the struggle. And things it seemed like were coming to help me rather than me having to force everything to happen. And that's how it carried on. And it only got more and more. It just wasn't these odd things. It was like strange meeting the right person at the right time who'd have the right idea. Or I'd come up with a creative idea that really worked. And I didn't have the stress and struggle. And I remember being on my yacht in a little bay, I think it was in the Greek islands, no one around, waking up in the morning, beautiful sunny day, and just slipping into the water, off the back of the boat, and having 3 businesses that I was managing remotely from the other side of the world. And I thought, I've got to figure out why this is so great. I don't have any stress and problems. I'm really enjoying my life. For the first time, or certainly completely opposite to all those years in the past, I felt like I was really living what we call in the flow. This was effort, but it wasn't struggle. It's just this amazing feeling. And I was like, this is what it's all about.
Let me interject here real quick, because you went on for a while there. And if I don't ask this question now, my audience is going to not have it in context. So I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they introduced me to a book called The Magic Question. Have you ever heard of this book?
No.
Okay. So the premise, it's a really short book. It's like 75 pages long. A lot of people go through their lives, and this is what made me think about what you were saying. They're like, I'll never have 3 businesses. I'll never have a yacht. I'll never be able to live in Denmark in my trailer. I will never. So what they're doing is they're programming their brains with all this negativity. I could never. Well, the premise of the book is you come up with a magic question. Let's say you want to make $100,000 this year. Let's say $120,000 this year, which is $10,000 a month. So you ask yourself, how can I earn $10,000 this month? Now, it's not like The Secret. It's not like the law of attraction. What you're doing is you're seeding your brain with that thought. How can I earn $10,000 this month? Now, you don't go to your whiteboard. You don't go to your notebook or your journal. You just go about your day. And what happens is, instead of you starting seeding your brain with negativity and woe is me, and I can't figure it out, you give your brain a task. How can I earn $10,000 a month? And you let it do its work in the background when you're doing your job. Now, I started doing this about 3 weeks ago. Now, I've not met my goal yet, so it's not magic. It's not like a magic wand poof. But what do you think about, because I believe that what you allow in your brain has a big impact on how you think. And so I think if you ask yourself a question, you don't say like, I don't like affirmations, because you stand in front of the mirror and you go, I am worth $10 million. Your brain goes, no, you're not. You can't even pay your mortgage. But if you ask a question, how can I earn $10,000 this month or this week or this day or whatever? Now your brain is getting a different seeding. What do you think about that? Because what you said in your story made me think about that.
Well, that didn't really work for me doing that, and I did that for years. And it sounds really good in theory. It sounds logical. But how do you explain the fact that I didn't have any goals? And in fact, I haven't had any goals ever since good things started to happening. I gave up setting goals. I gave up seeding my brain with, I want to earn this, or this is what I want. But what happened was magic showed up. I mean, if anyone had said to me, Liam, do you realize that you're going to spend 8 years sailing around the world in your own yacht, running 3 businesses, and life's going to be with a magical partner, and you're really going to enjoy life? I would have thought they're absolutely insane. And not only because I didn't believe that that could happen, but it's because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know that's what I wanted. I had no clue. I didn't know I wanted to sail around a yacht. And the problem is, it was interesting, we're a little bit off topic here in one way, because once we talk about what the brain really is and how it really works, we can realize there's another way to do it, which is what I proved to myself, and I've biologically proven since as to why it works. But I was talking
you're telling us right now, we're recording this on June 20th, you have no goals.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure, so the listener's not going, did he really say he had no goals? Because, Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and all these people, they say, you got to have goals, But I want to make sure that we, meaning I and the listener, understand you have no goals even now as we're talking.
Why would I limit myself? Why would I not just say, my goal is to be the best that I can be, have a great life right now, and allow my brain, which is an infinite computer machine, to show me what I'm supposed to have in my life for it to be great right now.
So you're thinking that goals are like guardrails that are limiting what we can do.
Well, if you ask anybody honestly what percentage of the goals that they set they ever achieve, and, I've been to lots of seminars with all the Tony Robbins and all those people, and I've talked to other people, and I've observed people, and you say to people, and I've said this to many of my own clients, it's one of the first things I say to them, what percentage of your goals that you set do you ever achieve? And they say, and I say, is it 100%? And they say, no. Is it 90%? No. Is it 70%? They keep shaking their head. 50, 40. You know what the average, if we're really, really, really honest, and there have been studies or people who've talked about this.
I'm going to say 10%.
It's between 2 and 3%.
Wow.
So here we're all thinking, well, everybody's setting goals and everybody's reaching their goals. I'm not reaching my goals, but everybody else is. And the reason I'm not reaching my goals is I'm not applying this technique of, I haven't fixed this idea clearly enough in my head that that's what I want. But the reality is, you don't know what you want. I mean, this billionaire friend of mine, he's retired now, but I've talked to him, he even wrote a book about this, and he said, Liam, I had a business with 1 million customers in 85 countries. I had 500 staff. I had 2 private jets. I was traveling around the world. I could never have put that on a goals list. I would never have dreamt that's what I could achieve. So why not accept that you have a potential, you have a machine here that's designed to make you the best that you can be in ways that you can't understand and that you can't control and figure out. This infinite part of you knows far more what you want, because this idea, someone says, I want to make $1 million. How do you know you want to make $1 million? How many times do we know of people who've made the $1 million and they're still not happy? And the reason is they're not aligned with who they really are. They're not using the part of their brain which is biologically designed to make them the best that they are for the greatest chance for survival. And we can talk a bit about biology and how nature actually works. We're all doing what I used to do, which is fight against nature. The way that the natural world operates is the path of least resistance. You go down water runs down a stream. It doesn't struggle to get down the stream, and if it sees an obstacle, it just goes around it. But we struggle, and we create all of these obstacles and resistances. But that's why I told my story, because I went from trying to force things to happen to allowing things to happen. And when you do that, and this isn't some airy-fairy woo-woo thing, this comes down to there are 2 particular parts of your brain. One is responsible for keeping you stuck. It's the part we think isn't keeping us stuck, but we're continually fighting to unstick ourselves, but we'll always stay stuck because we're using that part of the brain. And there's the other part of your brain, another part of the brain, which is designed to run your life. And that's actually the part that contains things like synchronicity, your imagination, your creativity, your intuition, your awareness. It's where you get those aha moments, and it's where you say, oh, wow, that's the solution to the problem I've been looking for all these weeks, and I couldn't find it. There's so much more to us than we realize on a biological level. And when we're trying to figure stuff out, when it's never going to happen.
Just for a second here. I want to stop just for a second here. We've been talking for 20 minutes, and I can envision the listener or the viewer going through their brain right now. And so I want to pause for a second, because what you're sharing with us is awesome. But this is a paradigm shift because we've always been drudged in.
Absolutely.
Goals, goals, goals. And I know people, they may be like, even though we're on the 20th minute, they may be back in the 6th minute going, did he really say no goals? So I want to pause you just for a second. And I want to encourage the listener and the viewer to like, don't say that'll never work for me. We don't want that to end of the conversation. What I want you to do and say, you're listening to a man, just to recap the first 20 minutes of our conversation. He had goals, he had everything, then he lost everything, he gave up, he stopped having goals, and he got all that stuff back. And I know it's a paradigm shift, listener. I get that. You're like, is he speaking Chinese? Is he speaking Arabic? Because it is so foreign to us. And I want people to understand that if you say that that's impossible, he's making this up, you're going to miss the gold that Liam is sharing with us today. So I just want to pause just for a moment because I'm really excited because I write my goals faithfully every day in my journal because that's what I thought I should do. Write my goals down every day. But when you said 2 to 3%, I'm like, as you're talking, I'm going back and like, what percent of my goals have ever occurred? And I'm like, it's about 2 to 3%. And yet my podcast will celebrate its 7th birthday on July 7th. I never had a goal of a podcast. And here I am, over 1,280 episodes. But that, to your point, that was never a goal of mine. So I've proven your point just by sharing my own life.
Exactly. And when you really start to think and shift your paradigm, you see how much of this is true. But the other thing we should probably say to your listeners and viewers before they go, this is rubbish and I'm out of here, I'm going to prove to you in this conversation that everything I say about this is absolutely true, and not in an airy-fairy way that you have to believe what I'm saying. I'm going to say it in a way that because I'd done enough of believing what people said and it didn't work. And then I tried something else and it really did work, and I wanted to figure out what I was doing right because I didn't want to stop it because it really was working. So I back-engineered this and I proved it every step of the way because, as I say, I was tired of just promises. So I guarantee or promise I will prove to you everything that I'm saying to the point where you go, that makes total logical sense.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Well, listen, I am excited. If we stop the podcast right now, we're not going to. If we stop recording right now, you have given the listener and myself, the host of the show, enough to go, wow, all the things I've learned through books and podcasts and videos and training, maybe I should question that. I mean, if we stop it right now, but I know you got more stuff to, I can't believe we've already been talking for 23 minutes already. This is gold here. So Liam, continue on.
Well, I guess when you say you shouldn't have goals and all that sort of thing, the question is, well, why not? What really works? And as I say, I think the first step is to say what doesn't work. And we have to be honest and say, like I was forced to be honest and say, all the stuff that I've tried and am trying, if I'm really honest, it's not working because my life isn't flowing. I still have problems and I'm not really happy. And I don't have a balanced life. I might be rich, but I'm miserable. And I've got all these other problems. And so the first thing to accept is there's something else going on in this world, in our life. And where I started, because I remember I'd studied all these other success things, I started with saying, well, what's this all about? What's the most important thing in the world? And what I realized, first off, is that nature overrides everything else, the laws of nature. So, for instance, you can go to a 10-story building and you can say, I'm going to go up in the air if I jump off that. And you can be motivated, you can pray, you can change your beliefs, you can have it written down as a goal, you can watch it for 1,000 times a day for a year before you do it, but you're still going to fall down when you go out. The law of gravity
wins.
The law of gravity overrides everything. And we are governed by our biological nature, the law of nature that keeps us alive, that keeps everything alive. So we need to understand that first. I mean, try and convince your heart to stop beating or stop breathing. You can't do it. So the first thing we need to realize, well, what is governing? What is the overriding law of nature? How does everything work and how do we fit into that? Because we are governed by that primarily. And if you'd ask any biological scientist, how does nature work? Or what drives nature? What's the purpose of nature? What are the principles and laws of nature? They would all say to you, nature has one primary purpose that overrides everything else, and it drives all of behavior and activity in nature, and that is to survive. All of nature, the whole of this natural world we live in, is designed biologically for everything to strive to survive. But it's not just to strive to survive. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? That's what everything is wired for, including us. But it's not just about raw survival, because what gives something the best chance of it surviving? It's being its best in every way. And science has a word for this. It's called homeostasis, which means the optimum functioning of the organism. And science has observed that every living thing is living in a state of homeostasis and is constantly seeking to maintain that level, which is their optimum functioning. So, and there have been studies done that shows that virtually all of nature operates like this. There's not much failure, in other words. Most of nature has been successful. Now, for humans, what does us being in homeostasis mean? What does it mean to be the best that you can be? Well, obviously it means that being the best that you can be physically, to have your organs operating efficiently as you're capable of, but it also means to be happy. It also means to be fulfilled. Because when you're happy, mentally, emotionally fulfilled, you're on purpose, you're grateful, you're loving, you're doing what you know you're here to do, and you're not bogged down with stress and problems, you are being the best that you can be. You are in the state of homeostasis. And we've all had an experience of this where things are going well, we're feeling really good, we're feeling there's a flow in our life. In fact, the state's often called being in the flow, being in the zone. So that's the purpose of all biological life. And all biological life, mainly 98%, achieves this state of just being the best that it can be. And if you go out and look in nature, that was a great thing about being on a boat and traveling around. I mean, nature all the time, you see what's really going on. Animals, plants, insects, birds, they're just being their best. They're just doing what they're there to do without any problems.
Have goals.
Well, no, exactly right. They're there in the moment doing what they're supposed to do. But the only exception is humans. So we are not in homeostasis. Well, 98% of humans, if 98% of the rest of nature is perfect and in homeostasis, 98% of humans aren't. Because if you were to ask most people, are you being the best that you can be? Do you feel really excited about your life? You don't have anything holding you back. Everything is flowing. You feel like you're doing just what you want to do, and you're totally happy and fulfilled in your life. Hardly anyone's going to tell you that. So why are we the exception? Is there something different about us? No, we're biologically part of the same ecosystem as the rest of the natural world. But here's the difference. Here's why we don't do that. It's because all of nature, because the other question I asked was, well, if nature's wired for this homeostasis, this perfection, this efficiency of existence, if you like, being the best that it can be, what has nature provided to as the tool or the instrument or the machine, if you like, to ensure that every living organism achieves that and lives like that? And that's a brain. All the brain is a machine designed to enable the organism, or to ensure that the organism stays in a state of homeostasis so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And I thought, so there can be only one reason why we're not living in the state of homeostasis, we're not being our best we can be. We're not using this machine the right way, the way it was designed, the way the rest of nature is. You think about any machine, because this is so, when I really got this, the frightening thing is how simple this is. And when I work with people, they're shocked at how simple it is, because it means we've got to undo all of this stuff that we've been fed about being unnatural. But as I said earlier, we are biological. We can't override the natural laws. We keep fighting against them, and that's what causes the problem. So if you think about any machine, like a motor car, that's got a very simple job to do. It's to get you from where you are to where you want to go, and it's going to do it perfectly. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get out every 5 minutes and check that the engine's still on. You don't have to go around and check it all and analyze everything. It's just going to do it if you drive it the right way. But what happens if you don't drive it the right way? You end up with problems. If you put the wrong fuel in, or if you've got your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, or you don't even know how to turn the engine on, it's not going to work. Some people, imagine this. You see a motor car and it's supposed to take you somewhere, but you don't know how to drive it. So you think, well, it's got wheels. I know, I'll get out behind and I'll push it along. And so you get behind and you put in all of this effort, and it hardly moves, if at all. And you think, why isn't it moving? And why am I so exhausted and I'm not getting good results? I know I'm not putting in enough effort. I need to be more motivated. I need to change my beliefs. I need to, improve my performance. Maybe I need to change my shoes or do these exercises to be stronger. And someone else comes along and says, why are you making it so hard? Why are you making it so unnatural? That's not the way an experience in a motor car is supposed to be. You're supposed to get in and enjoy the ride. That's what it's all about. And it really is the same with the brain. So maybe I could say a little bit how the brain works, because again, I think we've just overcomplicated everything. And as you say, nature doesn't set goals. Goals aren't natural. They're not. And here's the reason why. The problem that we have, or the reason we're using the brain the wrong way, is basically we've got, and I mentioned this earlier, these two parts of the brain. Now we've got this, on my website I've actually got a model of 4 parts of the brain. There's 4, but the most important in terms of how you operate are these 2. And one is I call the creative brain. And the creative brain, as I said earlier, this is the part that you're supposed to use to drive your life, because it's where all your imagination, your creativity, it's where you get an idea for a podcast and you go, and you don't even know where the idea comes from. And all of these things happen. And before you know, 7 years later, and you've got all these episodes, and it's like, you weren't really planning this out. Sure, you were doing some work along the way, but how did this all show up? It's because you get this inspiration, you get these ideas, you see these opportunities. And more importantly, or equally importantly, your brain literally brings you opportunities. And I know that sounds woo-woo, but how do you explain synchronicity? How do you explain luck and chance events? Well, from a limited perspective, a limited awareness, not the awareness that you have when you're using this part of your brain, you think it's just all a fluke. No, there's no reason for it. Of course, my brain. But when you understand how your brain works and how powerful it is, and what it's there to do, which is not only to make you do the right things, but to make the right things happen in your life, then you realize that, yes, that is what's going on. So your creative brain has all of this. It has all of your inspiration. It has your new ideas. It has your motivation. This is the part you're using when you get those gut feelings. And you go, oh, I should do that, or I shouldn't do that. Now, if you can carry on using it the right way, you will act on those little voices and you will do the right thing and you'll get the right result. Most of the time we ignore it and we go, oh, no, I don't think that'll work, or no, or I'm afraid to do that, but I'll force something else to happen. So, for instance, we marry the wrong person and we say, oh, but I'll make it work. They're only 60, 70%, but everyone knows that relationships are difficult. Everyone knows you always have problems. Everyone knows you have to work on your relationship. So I'll make it work. Same with a business. I'll make this work. Rather than listening to that little voice saying to you, this is a bad idea. You're going to end up with problems here. So this is a creative brain. And when we use this part of our brain, we are in our natural homeostasis state. This is the way we're designed to live. We're supposed to be in access and using this part of the brain all the time. But the problem is we don't use all that part of the brain all the time. We're not feeling really in control of our life. And the reason is because there's another part of our brain which keeps us stuck. And this is the one we use nearly all the time. And this is the part that's designed for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to protect you from any threats or dangers that might come into your life. Now remember, when the brain was created millions of years ago, we lived in a physical world that was very dangerous. There were lions behind every rock. So we had to develop this mechanism to take us out of this natural flow state, to devote our energy and attention to dealing with a threat or a danger, fight off the lion or run away or shout for help. And so we developed this response. Sometimes we call it the fight-flight response. But all it is a reaction that from what our brain sees as a threat to our survival, a true physical danger. But what activates that part of the brain is all of the emotions of fear, worry, stress, anxiety, anger, frustration. What you're doing on a biological level when you feel any of those emotions is your brain is telling you there's a threat to your physical survival. Now, we know there isn't, but your brain somehow, we can talk a little about why, your brain has tricked you. Through all of your years of your life, you have taught your brain to create imaginary lions, if you like, out there. Mm-hmm. And so you keep activating this part, and people say to me, well, I'm not afraid or whatever. All of your negative emotion is driven by an underlying subconscious fear. And because it's subconscious, because it's unconscious, you don't know what it is, and you don't even know it's there. But that's what triggers these negative feelings And when you have those negative feelings, you activate this response, this weapon, and you shut down all the resources, the resourceful part of your brain. Because remember, this fighting off a lion, you don't need to think about it. You don't need to plan. You don't need to have a goal. You don't need to work anything out. You don't need to think what's the best way to do it. If you did all that, you'd be dead. You have to just react. So this part of the brain is designed not to think.
Because I do have some questions for you. Obviously, you're very well versed in what you're saying, but I want to make sure I ask my questions. It is the Mr. Productivity Podcast. So I got to get my question in. So I've always learned that our lives are sort of like a thermostat. And when we're born, our thermostat is set, like to say, 65 degrees. And if it gets too warm, the body turns on the air conditioning. If it gets too hot, it turns on the heater. And what I've always believed is when you start getting outside your comfort zone, your body will let you go a little bit either way. But if you go too far out of your comfort zone, even though it may be a good thing, what happens is your body goes, well, I don't know, it may not work out. People are going to laugh at you. So we go back in our comfort zone. There's a comfort zone for our bodies. And then we try to go the other way and we get too close to the sun, if you will. And the body goes, oh, no, don't do that. And so is that sort of what you're saying, is that we all have this range of comfort, and when we try to stray too far from that, our body starts sending all these warning signals, which are not really serving us. They're actually hurting us because we're not going outside the bounds to learn new things, to experience new things, because we're stuck in our bubble. Is that similar to what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's sort of related, but it's actually even simpler than that. Basically, when your brain recognizes something, so as you say, getting out of your comfort zone, say it's going up to somebody and asking them to buy your product, if you're in sales. So when you think about going up to that person and asking them to buy your product, if you feel any anxiety about it, stress, worry, what is actually happening is there's a subconscious fear, an unconscious fear that your brain has, which is if you go up and talk to that person, they're going to reject you. And if somebody rejects you, everybody, when you are rejected, that means that the whole world is going to reject you or could reject you. And therefore you could end up homeless under a bridge with absolutely nothing. So your brain is actually seeing that as a threat to your survival, because you have this thing that you've drilled into your head from whatever experiences in your life. Your brain literally believes it is a threat to your survival. And because it does, it says doing that as a threat to your survival activates fear, activates the shutdown survival part of your brain, and gets you to do all the wrong things. You don't go up to the person, or you stay frozen. Remember, it's fight, flight, or freeze. You do nothing, or you do the wrong thing. You have an argument with somebody, and then you say all the wrong things. You're reacting. You're lashing out. Whereas if your brain had another belief, and this is what I do with people, is help them find out what these beliefs that are holding them back actually are, because all it's doing is triggering a part of your brain. You don't have to worry about trying to force yourself to change your belief. All you need to do is find the triggers that are triggering that part of your brain and stop activating them. And that's automatically going to trigger the things to activate your creative brain. Because there are plenty of people for whom going up and speaking to someone, trying to sell them something or ask them to buy something, their brain doesn't associate that with pain. They think that's great. And so they go up all the time. Hey, you want to buy this? Hey, that's great. And they're not feeling anxious or stressed at all. And because they're not feeling anxious or stressed, they're using the creative part of their brain. They're being themselves. They're being fun, and they're doing a lot better. They're a lot more productive, and they're getting a lot better results in their life. So it's so simple. We've just overcomplicated it.
My point is when you are scared of going and talk to the person about the sale, and you get all these warning signals from your brain saying, danger, danger, danger. If you go, I'll just send them an email. Now you're coming back to, okay, now I'm back in my comfort zone. I'll just send them a safe email. That way they can ignore it. They can delete it. It doesn't matter, because now my body goes, okay, an email that's safe. I could send them an email that's safe. So there'll be no warning signals for me sending them an email.
No, but you're acting out of fear. Exactly. That's
right.
safe.
What I'm saying is that
that sending an email
is going up to them and talking to them is scary, but if I go and say, I'll send an email, my body goes, okay, that's not as threatening. Go ahead and send the email.
But both actions are motivated by fear. So you go, oh, I'm afraid to talk to them, so I'll just send them an email. Because again, that's just a quick reactive thing to do that makes you feel a bit better. It makes you feel, oh, I'm actually doing something. But you know deep down that you're not going to get a result doing that. It's a waste of time. But you're satisfying your survival brain's need to pacify your fear. So the real trick here is not to try and figure out what to do. It's just to try and figure out what's causing this part of your brain to be activated. Why you are worried about going up and talking to somebody. What's the subconscious fear that's driving that? And that doesn't come from your thoughts, because, so much of my life I thought that you have to figure this stuff out. Say, all right, I've got a fear. I need to work out I've got to use my willpower and convince myself that it's, that I can go and talk to them, and maybe I should try it 100 times to overcome the fear and all that sort of thing. That's way too complicated. It doesn't need to be that complicated. Because when you think about it, when you're in the state of fear or anxiety, what do we say to ourselves? I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. What do I do? What's the answer? What are my goals? And all of that is coming from, I'm not happy where I am right now. I don't feel in control. And we're asking all of these important questions, like how to solve a problem, or what should I do with my life, or what should my goals be? We're asking this part of the brain that has no clue. It's not designed to know. All of those answers are in your creative brain. They know instantly the solution to any problem in your life. I do a lot of marriage and relationship coaching, and I often say to people, you've got this problem in your marriage. What do your friends tell you should do? They go, they say, it's the wrong marriage and I should give up and get on with it and find someone else much better, and it's been really bad. And I say, why don't you think that? Oh, well, I can make it work. And, in other words, they can't see the right solution because they're tied up in fear. Their brain is not capable of showing them the right solution, but the friend who is not attached to it, hasn't activated that part of their brain, can see very clearly the answer, very clearly the solution. And this is so true of every area of our life. When some of my businesses, I had some that went really well. I've had 18 businesses in my life over the years. Some went really well, some didn't go well. But I always found that I was making lots of mistakes by trying to force things to happen, by trying to work things out. And the things that really happened, good and bad, were sort of like out of my control, like losing everything, or meeting somebody, or seeing, someone coming along with a business opportunity for me, or an employee or somebody who applied for a job who turned out to be absolutely wonderful and helped make the business great. All of those things weren't happening when I was stressed, trying to figure it out, trying to work out my goals, coming from a place of unhappiness. You're never going to know what to do in that situation. But when you move to the other part of your brain, it all works out.
Yeah, so we're going to come up to the end of the time together, and I want to make sure we give people tactical information, because for the past 43 minutes, you have given us a lot of background, a lot of great knowledge, but I don't want people to leave this episode and go, okay, I understand everything that Liam said, but what am I supposed to do with this? So let's spend the next 10 minutes or so of the episode here and really give people concrete, practical things that they can do so they can go, okay, Liam said do this, got it. So let's go there next.
Well, I'm going to do another paradigm shift here and say, you don't need to know what to do. Because people saying,
over then.
No, I've got an answer for it, don't worry. But people say, what do I need to do now to fix my life? That's a little bit like saying, you go to your father when you're 10 years old and say, can I drive the car over the hill, please, tomorrow night to a friend's place? And he says, well, you don't know how to drive it. And you say, okay, well, I'll be happy for you to teach me how to drive it. But just tell me one thing I can do right now to get me over the hill to where I want to go and drive in the car tomorrow. It doesn't really work like that. You've got to start with the understanding and then move on to creating a new habit. And that's when you start to see results. It's like a diet. I could say to people, well, if you want to lose weight, stop eating junk food, good food, and exercise. But it's not it's simple, but it's not that easy. But here's a couple of things and this, as I say, we make this too complicated. We think this has got to be another thing that I have to learn. I have to go and meditate, or I have to spend hours, with Liam on Zoom calls or learn a whole lot of new stuff. But I've had people work with me who get it in as little as 30 seconds. Because remember, we're talking about something natural. And we're talking about something that involves giving up resistance. And when you want to know the next thing to do, when you try and figure out the next thing to do, I'll give you a few things to suggestions. But when you're fixated on that, you're coming from a place of lack and saying, that's what your survival brain says. What do I do to get out of this? What do I do right now? So a couple of quick ideas and then a practical strategy on what to do. First two questions for everybody. Think of something that was really significant in your life that, like maybe meeting the person that you married, or getting a new business off the ground, or a new opportunity, or podcast coming up, and go back to the day before when that happened. So perhaps meeting your partner or your spouse. The day before, did you know that was going to happen? Now, one of the most significant things in your life, but had you written down tomorrow morning at whatever time, I'm going to meet this person, they're going to look like this, and this is going to be the map of our life, and we're going to have these children, and this is where we're going to live, and this is what we're going to do. Now, what I realize is for all of the significant things that happen in your life, none of them are what you plan. They're all like that. So you really have to say to yourself and be honest, coming back to that honesty, what's going on? There's something else that's actually, somebody once said, life's what happens while we're busy making other plans. But if you can acknowledge it, if you can really get that in your head and stop for a second and think, that is true. That is in my life, the unexpected things are what has shaped my life to the most degree. The second thing to be aware of, really, so it's an idea really worth playing with. This isn't about just jumping onto the next technique. This is about spending some time in the one place we never spend any time, which is stopping and really connecting and thinking about something deeply, rather than just rushing on to reading the next book. But the second thing to think is, all right, whenever I've done something that I really didn't want to do, so when I had an argument with somebody, my husband or my wife that I married when I thought things were going well, so I had an argument and I said something really hurtful, and even at the time I was saying it, I knew I shouldn't say it, but I still said it, and it didn't do any good. It just made things worse. Or I decided on something like a business decision, and I thought, I'm not sure this is going to work, and this makes me feel really uneasy, but you did it anyway, and you thought, I'm going to force this to happen. I'm going to shut down that, and it turns out all it does is create you problems. So what made you do that? What made you do something that even at the time you felt uneasy about? What made you react to somebody else without thinking, and it made things worse? And you say to yourself later, why did I do that? That was stupid. I should never have done that. It's not you in control. It's your brain is in control. Your brain is creating all of these unexpected events, and it's making you do things without you being in control. So when you understand that, then you have to say, well, how can I direct it? How can I make sure that I get my brain to do the things that are good for me, the things that I really want? And the way to do that is to say, I've got to get rid of the triggers. Identify what the triggers are, and they're both external, they're things around you, and internal. The things that are making me feel bad. Now, I don't know why they're making me feel bad. The reason is there'll be an unconscious belief that your brain has around fear for whatever it is. But whatever the trigger is, I have to stop allowing things that make me feel bad to come into my life, because the second they do, they're going to shut down my creative brain and activate this other part of my brain. So if I'm watching the news and it's all bad and it's making me feel bad, switch off the news. People say, well, you have to stay informed. Really? I haven't watched the news in 15 years, and my life never got better from the day, has continued to get better when I stopped watching the news. If you need to know something, someone will tell you, because everyone else is watching the news. So stop watching the news.
Point.
Stop being in a conversation with somebody that you don't enjoy that's making you feel bad. Stop talking about something. Stop thinking about something that's making you feel bad, because it doesn't matter what the justification. All those things are activating the wrong part of your brain, and it's never going to work. And here's another thing we could talk about: goals, because I promised I'd say why goal setting doesn't work. Happy with that? Here's a law.
It's a good way to wrap up the show.
Yeah. Because I know it's a controversial thing to say, and I can say, well, only 2 or 3% of goals don't get achieved. But here's why. Over billions of years of life, nature has figured out the best way to get things done. The best way, the most efficient way for life to survive and thrive, to be the best that it can be, so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And even people like Charles Darwin, when they were studying evolution and the behavior of nature, and it's branched out into all sorts of different areas like biomimicry, which is a whole study on the way nature works, they've all come to this amazing conclusion that nature is superbly efficient at figuring out and maintaining how to be the best that it can be with the least amount of energy, the greatest efficiency. Not with struggle, not with resistance, because remember, resistance isn't natural. If you go into the wind, you're going to go slower and it's going to be harder than if you go with it. Resistance is unnatural. So nature's figured this out. Nature's figured out the best way to do it. It's this, if you like, biological efficiency, which means to get the most out of the minimum amount of energy. So here's the thing. If your brain knows what's best for you, and you don't know what it is necessarily through your thoughts, it's much, much greater than that. And it knows how to bring it to you. It knows what you truly need to be your biological best, to live this amazing life in homeostasis. So now it knows, and it also knows how to get it for you every step of the way. However, if your brain showed you what your goal was, perhaps me, as I say, all those years ago, living on my mother's couch, my brain had said, don't worry, Liam, you're going to be ending up on a yacht sailing around the world, and you're going to be running 3 businesses, and you're going to be talking to all these great people, and you're going to meet this guy called, all these people on podcasts, and like, you're going to have an amazing life, and you're going to have I would have said, that's crazy. I don't know how to do that. So what would I do? I'd start doubting. I'd start questioning. I'd try and start figuring it out, wasting all of that energy rather than getting on and making it happen. And that's for the same reason your brain also doesn't say, well, here's the next 20 steps that you need to take to get to your goal. What would happen if your brain told you that? You'd start analyzing. You'd start questioning. Oh, hang on, step number 3. Now, if I did that, what happened if that other thing happened? What happened if step number 4 didn't happen? Or what would I do? And I'm not sure that would work. I need to go and look it up to see if there's a better way to do that. Waste of time, waste of energy, waste of your life. So here's what the brain does. And this is what this billionaire shared with me that I was telling you about earlier, who had the 1 million customers and didn't have a goals list. He said, your brain shows it to you in the most biologically efficient way possible, and that's the very next step. That's all you need to know, is the very next step. And when you take that step, without worrying, without trying to figure out where it's going to go or what it means, you just take it. You just know that your brain is leading in the right way. Then it shows you the next step. And then it shows you the next step. And that's all you need to do. And that billionaire, as he said to me, he never planned his life ahead more than 4 minutes. So that's the way we're designed to live our life. And that ties in with all these ideas of living in the moment, living in the present, taking action, being in the flow. Because when you are in the flow, when you are in the zone, you're just taking the next step. You're not thinking hard about it. You're not worried about it. And that's the key. You're not worried about it. So the challenge, really simple, stop the triggers that are activating the wrong part of your brain and causing you to shut down the natural flow of your life. Stop those triggers, figure out what they are, find out what they are, stop them, stay in the flow of life as a result, which is all you need to do, and you're just going to find you're going to take the right action. It's just going to happen. And that's what happened for me. I wasn't forcing it. How, all these things, I still can't tell you how they happened.
Well, I will tell you this, Liam, as a result of this podcast, I will give serious consideration of not writing my goals down, because that 2 to 3% is my brain. Part of my brain is still back when you said that, 2 to 3%. But I took a boatload of notes, and listener, don't forget, you can go back and listen to this over and over and over again, because Liam gave you a lot to think about. I wrote a ton of notes. I only hope I can read it later on. So before I ask you where people can go to find out more about you, you gave us a lot to think about. What is one thought that you want to leave people with? Because I don't want them to go, oh my goodness, that was a lot of information, even though they can listen to it again. What is one thought you want to make sure people don't miss that you said?
We just way overcomplicate things. Look at nature. Nature is naturally successful. You're designed to be naturally successful, not to force it to happen. And it is really simple. If all of the rest of nature can do it, we can do it. But you just need to have this openness to say, the way I've been trying it hasn't worked. And if it's a 2 to 3% success rate, imagine going to a heart surgeon and we had a 2 to 3% success rate, you're going to say, whatever he's doing is a disaster, So just realize that there's something else going on. Those things that bring to you those unexpected events that shape your life or that get you to do things beyond that seemingly are beyond your control and you don't know why you did it. There's something else going on. It's this natural part of you that's designed to make your life the best that it can be. That's your biological purpose. That's why you're here. And all you need to do is tune into that. And, I'm the proof of it, and people I've worked with, they've had great results as well from this, because you just have to learn to let go. And I mean, I'm not just saying let go. Everyone says let go. This is really letting go. And really letting go only comes when you understand how this works. And then you can go, makes total sense. I'm going to try it. And when you do, you start to see some results. And when you start to see some results, you go, wow, I'm doing more of this.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can people go to find out more about you? Because you probably blew their socks off and maybe they blew their hair off, although I have no hair. I shave every morning, but they're going to want to know information. So where can they go to find out more about you?
Yeah, well, it's all on my website, liamnaden.com. I've got a ton of information there, and I've got a webinar about how to unlock your success brain, which goes into, it shows you the details in a simple way so that you get it and you just try this, using your brain a different way and getting a different result. And that's what it's all about. If we're not getting a result the right way, well, it's time to try something completely different, something more natural.
100%. 100%. Liam, I want to thank you for being on the show today. It was mind-blowing. I mean, my brain is still trying to process everything, but I want to thank you for being on the show. Folks, I will be back real soon with another episode. Don't forget to go to Liam's website, liamnaden.com, and then also hop on over to my website, mrproductivity.com. 2 websites that'll serve you well. We'll see you in the next episode.